It was on the national news. It was coverage on the national news. It's actually a Deepwater Horizon tragedy because it was just there was loss of life. It was just a horrific blowout, and that just got worse on a daily basis with the oil pumping into the Gulf of Mexico.
But when the Deepwater Horizon rig collapsed into the Gulf on April 22nd, it ruptured a pipe, allowing oil to begin flowing into the Gulf. Efforts to activate the well's blowout preventer failed. That's more than 2.5 million gallons of oil day after day, week after week. And that's the equivalent of the Alaskan Exxon Valdez disaster every 4 days.
It was pretty daunting on the docks.
Yeah, because I remember that they couldn't. We watched the news to see if they're going to get it plugged, and they didn't get it plugged, and it kept going and going.
Yeah, you got an oil forecast for how far the oil had creeped. Instead of a weather forecast, you got an oil forecast.
Man, that seems so long ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I wasn't particularly worried about it because I figured, okay, the oil companies, they have the technology to deal with these things. There's a crisis, but I'm sure they've thought ahead. And besides, I already knew that the oil bubbles up naturally out of the Gulf anyway. I thought a little bit more is not going to really kill anything, hurt anything, bother anybody.
Initially, I was not. I thought, oh, they'll get this thing taken care of. That thing is 100 miles out there. We'll be all right. Didn't really think about it too much.
I mean, I was pretty upset because I like clean water, you know. I was pretty upset about that, having that many gallons of oil, and you're thinking, oh, they'll get it capped, and they don't. And it went how many days? I can't remember. It was months that they couldn't cap it, and that was pretty frustrating. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it went from kind of la-di-da about it to getting, wow, this is getting kind of close.
Yeah.
Getting concerned.
And all of a sudden, the phone started blowing up, you know, and I'm going, okay, here we go. It's gonna, you know, we're pacing for a good year, and here they come. Well, all those phones were canceling.
I was very concerned because if the guys don't fish, I don't pump fuel, I don't make money.
Yeah.
I have to close down. That's our mainstay. And if they weren't, we didn't know if they'd be able to fish. We didn't know. The future was so uncertain for all of the fishermen.
And then it got real because they started talking about this thing is big and it's moving and we can't stop it. And then the fishermen began to call me a lot and with concerns and said, this is going to tear us up. This is going to tear us up.
There's going to be a harmful effect on many local businesses, and it's going to be painful for a lot of folks.
I was actually going out fishing, and I was with one of the boat captains, and we were coming back in the past, and we just looked at each other and said, I wonder if this is going to be the last time we see this like this, because it was absolutely beautiful. I wonder if this is the last time we're going to see it like this in our lifetime. I remember that one of the things that touched me the most is I was working on a sermon. Maybe that sermon, I don't know, but I was working on a sermon. And I got a call from Captain Kirk Reynolds. And he said, Mike. I said, hey, how you doing? He said, well, he said, I'm about a mile off in Navarre. And I'm looking at an oil slick as far as I can see.
Man.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it is not only real, but it's going to hit us. It's just destined to hit us.
I mean, I remember, because I lived in Holiday Isle, I remember waking up one morning and the wind was blowing out of the south and you could smell the oil.
You could smell it.
Yeah.
There was definitely a tinge in the air.
Yeah. And then I remember one time sailing by Crab Island in the you know, kind of in the channel there, and seeing little drops of oil go by, you know, like that, little drops like that. The Horizon was another nail in what we had two hurricanes. 04 you had Ivan, 05 you had Dennis. Dennis came in July, which wrecked the rest of the tourist season. We didn't have any tourist season after that. And then the real estate market bubble popped, and then you had the collapse of the mortgage industry, and then to top it off, we had the oil spill. So it was about 5 rough years for our whole community.
It was scary for our community in general because people cut vacations out of their budget. And so we were coming out of 2009, and people, all of a sudden we were showing progress. The call volume was up, people were booking, and they were coming back to the beach. They were ready to be back at the beach, and then all of a sudden this happened, and that's when the phone started ringing in the wrong way, and people were canceling and asking questions about, can we eat the seafood, and are there going to be dolphins washing up on the beach while my kids are playing, and just all kinds of craziness, and it was really scary, because our community had already, those who made it out of 2009, we were all on a shoestring budget at that point. And I think the fear was it was going to be like Exxon Valdez. Right. And that, all of our animals were going to be covered in muck, and our beaches were going to be completely ruined, and nobody was ever going to be able to eat the seafood here again. And it's just, fear and death over our whole city.
It was a fear factor of 10. It was just uncertainty, and every day we got these reports that the oil was closer and closer, and we're headed for doom and gloom, but just wasn't the case, was it?
Sure. Is there anything besides the Lord we think is really going to carry us through this? And the answer is no. No.
The whole docks were under the spirit of fear, and it was awful. It was just a terrible thing. But when I look back in retrospect over that, I see basically mainly how all of our churches came together. Every church poured out in prayer. Some walked the beach, some did other things. One of them came on our boat, and one night we did a salt purification ceremony like the one in 2 Kings with Elisha. And that was one of the most incredible moments of my life. It was a dark, dark night, and it's like there was war going on in the heavens. You remember that, Wendy?
Yeah.
You can't forget it. With the lightning and the black clouds, and it was incredible. And when I think about it, I think of miracles, and I love miracles. I like the kind of miracles that man can't put his hand on and say, hey, I did that. This is a miracle God did. Wendy and I witnessed the change in winds. When we put our boat in the water, when Cliff said the oil's here, we came out to the Gulf of Mexico, and it was 200 feet off the beach, right at the Destin West Jetty. Now, 200 feet may sound like a long way, but it's not. It's right there. And we witnessed the wind stop, prevailing always from the south that time of year. It stopped. And then maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, we got those light airs out of the north. And then the next day, that oil was 2 miles off our beach, and the day following that, it was 9 miles off our beach, never to come and kiss our beaches.
Wow.
That was a miracle.
It was extraordinary.
It was a miracle.
From the story in the Bible, what was the purpose of the salt?
Well, it goes back, as far as I can recall, to 2 Kings, I think chapter 2, where they came to Elisha, correct me if I'm wrong, and they said, look, our land's great, but our water's bad, it's foul, there's disease and death, and the land's unfruitful. So Elisha said, okay, go get me a clean container, fill it full of salt, and he salted the stream, he salted their water, and from that day on, the water was pure, clean, good to drink.
That night for me, what was impressive was that even the little kids, they had an open mic so people could come up and pray while we did it. And even the little kids were bold enough to come up and pray.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was really frustrating because we didn't get any oil here, but the media built it up big time, so people were canceling vacations but we didn't have oil, so that was a bit frustrating.
So that was in April. We had a call from the producer who had done the Weather Channel bit and for NBC, and he was like, I'm not believing all this negative press that's all across the country. I'm hearing good things about Destin and that there's no oil on the beach. Well, that had to be God right there, because the media loves fear, and there was a good story to be had, and he wanted to come back. And he filmed my dad and the mayor, Sam Severs at the time, walking down the beach trying to find tar balls. And, little kids playing in the sand and talking about how they'd never seen a tar ball and how it was so perfect. And, for those families at the time it was, because nobody else was there, and it was nice. And no lines at restaurants. And
The devil loves to sit on your shoulder and just sort of nibble at you and scare you with the what ifs. And there were a lot of what ifs going on. Not only that, but the town emptied out.
Yeah.
We fuss about, the tourists are all here, and guys are just cramming everything in the stores. And then all of a sudden we found out what Destin looks like when there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And it was a ghost town for a while.
We all had to work really hard to get them to come back.
Our marquee said the coast is clear. You know, and but we did get a lot of support from the media, and because I know I spoke to numerous stations from Tallahassee and Georgia and other, just to put it out that it was close, but it wasn't closed. We were blessed.
You could just sense that they had been through a lot. The ones that went out way offshore and stuff, you could sense they had seen a lot and ready to go.
Yeah, I remember the captains that were all being paid to go out and look for oil because they always had to wear their life jackets.
There was a trickle-down effect. All of a sudden, you know, the monies we're looking forward to from our tourism trade just dried up. And that affected everyone in this town.
But there was, whenever Feinberg came, as here to the Emerald Grand, we knew it was really real. Well, that was quite an experience that day. I mean, even for realtors, who all of a sudden no one's buying here. That dried up, and so that day at the Emerald Grand, there was a plan, and it had saved a lot of people.
There wasn't much you could do.
Yeah, the only thing I remember, with the Church of Destin was lots of prayer, and I was fortunate, I thought it was fortunate to be in a city where the pastors decide to get together and lay aside, which had been always the case anyway, moving here and being a part of the Ministerial Association when they got together after Hurricane Katrina, and we had a big thing at the community center, a big prayer, and to help with the evacuees coming from Louisiana. So this city was pretty much known for unity within the churches. So to be with a group of pastors that decided, well, we're going to fight this thing, through prayer, was pretty cool. And then seeing it not hit here just makes you think about, Leonard Destin settling here. Felt like God brought him here. Just the way Destin was established, you think there's something pretty special about this city.
Yeah, when you read that plaque down there on the dock, it just
brings tears to your eyes.
Your spine.
I promised myself I wasn't going to cry.
It's so true.
Sometimes I look at prayer like God looked down at the earth and here's somebody praying, there's a light there. But there was so much prayer in all of our churches working together to do something together. It's like if God looked down to Destin, Florida, it would have just be illuminated with light. That's what happened, and I think that's why God said, you know what, we're going to spare these beaches. And that's what he did in his own way, in a way that nobody could do it but him. For all the people of Destin, Walton County, all the different churches, it wasn't any one thing. I just think it was everyone coming together in unity, petitioning before the Lord, say, we need you. Please help us.
I think that's what makes our community so great.
It is. It truly is.
Some of the churches even planned candlelight vigils. We did walks along
Walk the beach all the way, the miles of beach.
They strategically placed all the different congregations arm in arm down the beach where there was not one spot that wasn't covered in prayer. And that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, because I think Paul Coomer was here back then. Mm-hmm. Mike Hesse was with the Emmanuel. I think those, and then of course Mel Ponder and Mike Parker, they all kind of spearheaded that to get out there, and with the Wilsons as well, because I think the Wilsons provided the boats to go out there, the boat to go out there. So yeah, it was cool to be a part of an organization that says, like I said, decide we're going to believe God. Right. We've seen God move mountains before. Why can't he do it for us now? And then of course, just feel like that there's something special about Destin. Because it did, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they prayed in Panama City. Maybe they prayed in Mobile or Dauphin Island or Gulf Shores. I don't know. But I know that we prayed and nothing came ashore here. I don't know what these other people did, and you can talk about science and weather and the Destin Dome. All I know is a group of pastors put salt in the water and prayed, and we didn't get any oil. And that's what should have been on the media. Come to Destin, because we ain't got no oil.
Right.
Kind of like the end of World War II. I mean,
When they finally got
sailors
it
are kissing
capped,
girls.
and we knew that there was light at the end of the tunnel, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And finally, on July 15th, oil stopped gushing into the Gulf for the first time since the leak began.
But that year was still economically weak. I mean,
That's the beginning of the season.
it did. It kind of ruined the summer.
It did.
But I remember, like I said, we had to lay off staff. We had to not lay them off. We just said, we can't pay you. And then I remember Claude Perry gave us office space for a year for free because everyone was just hurting. You know, he's like, I got an office you can use for a year. They're like, okay.
You know, Destin had developed over the years that whole idea of one church, many congregations. And it's in times like that that pays off. It paid off. Everybody was already used to working together. And so what flowed was natural.
My takeaway is that Destin is blessed and highly favored. I think it's because of people like Father Mike and Steve and Wendy and, you know, of course my dad and everybody that, you know, buckled down and believed in the power of prayer and willingness to work together. And I feel like we have a great force here. Not every day that even pastors can all get along, so.
The sense of community, you know, you can be proud because it's been proven over and over again that we're all blessed and we're all together with God.
Look what God can do. Right? For me, that's just the bottom line. Look what God can do. We have the power to just screw things up royally. And we do. But God's merciful, and look what he can do. I mean, he saved this community.
That's my takeaway too, is that just what God's willing to do, he listens and he's willing to act on our behalf. And he did that. He did that in an uncharacteristic way that you would never have guessed. There's no reason in the real world why the southern wind didn't blow all that oil on our beach, but he stopped it from happening. He changed the wind direction, something no man can do. My takeaway is I love those kind of miracles that man can't claim, something that the sovereign Holy Spirit did for us on our behalf from all the prayers and everyone coming together in unity to say, we can't do this alone. We need your help. And he showed up and he showed off. And that's the way those things are, though. I mean, here we are like all this time later and we put a monument up but it's forgotten and some things need to be remembered. And I think that's one of those things that need to be remembered here in Destin because it says so much about the culture here, the people here, what we believe, and the end result of that. And it's just good.
And people notice, you know, in real estate, and you get to talk to a lot of people in different, you know, from different communities, and they say, you know, it's really special here.
I hear that a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's blessed and highly favored.
Yeah, I believe that.
I do too.